Hello, PSAPs. We don't normally get this formal. Normally, Chad and I just start babbling at each other, but we have a special guest today, and we haven't had too many special guests. No, it's you. Not too many of them. And I will say, this is the first special guest we've had on the show that we don't know or owe money to. So that's a bit. And in honor of that, sir, I would like to present you with this Harley Quinn coin bank. Oh, that didn't work. I really didn't think that out. Welcome to our show, Christopher Jones, amazing, disgustingly talented comic book artist, and clearly Superman fan.
Well, thank you so much. Although I'm disappointed to start this off by learning that you don't owe me money.
Yeah. I did check before we started.
What are you gonna do? I had come across your channel on YouTube, and while I have not watched every episode, I've watched enough of them to. I have watched enough of them to get a sense of like, oh yeah, we could have a conversation. And it's not like I don't have opinions about these things, so I'm happy to share them with anyone foolish enough to listen.
Yes. Pro or am, or just readers or fans of whatever. The thing is that if you love something enough, you're going to have opinions about it. And It's something that, Chad and I are longtime friends, but what we would start talking about that would drive our other friends away is when we would start talking comics, specifically Superman, because we're such huge fans. What's exciting about doing the channel so far is just that we're meeting a lot of people on the same wavelength, young and old. And literally we were not, and we still aren't really structuring the podcast, but doing the rewatches of the Christopher Reeves films has been a big thing for us. Is that where you were you just searching Superman and you found us?
I don't know that I was searching. I think just my algorithms inevitably produced your channel. Because I do watch a lot of superhero related content. I watch I'll watch reaction videos and things like that. I don't have the opportunity to hang out with friends and watch movies as much as I used to.
Man.
And that used to be my favorite form of socializing. And so especially during COVID, the best substitute I found for that kind of thing was, it may not be interactive, but getting to revisit some old favorite TV show or film by seeing someone respond to it for the first time. Seeing it is kind of fun.
Yeah, a friend of mine
went on that rabbit hole.
one of our friends of the show, who is also guested, my friend John, similar thing where during the pandemic we started watching old horror movies and turned that into a podcast. And then because he's a younger dude, though he was familiar with the show, I was like, let's do a side podcast. It's just about Kolchak the Night Stalker. So that became, it was going episode by episode. Speaking of which, there you go. That's my Kolchak meets Dr. Fives t-shirt.
Those properties are two favorites of mine.
Mm-hmm. And you've done some Kolchak.
I've drawn a Kolchak comic book. It was many, 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 many years ago. Was
that Moonstone?
It was Moonstone. The art was done. It was actually a script I quite liked, but financial necessity and schedules meant doing a real fast job on it. And I just did the pencils that way. And I think the inker was under similar circumstances. And, it's one of those things where it would be fun to have another crack at the character, because I don't fully feel like I did them justice. Not to mention it was so early in my career. I also did the original comic book adaptation of Reanimator.
Oh, wow.
And again, I don't pull out those pages to like show off.
Was that like innovation? Because I was trying to think of who had that license, and I can only go. I think those guys who also had Hellraiser and all the Clive Barker stuff.
I don't think it was innovation. I was doing work for Eternity Comics for a while, which then became part of Malibu. It might have been Eternity. I don't recall off the top of my head at this moment, but
man, that's
sorry
wild.
to have gone so.
No, I always enjoy pulling that card out because I through no plan, I ended up kind of getting typecast in my comics career as doing animation tie-in stuff and a lot of all ages comics. So to be able to tell people that I early in my career I did the comic book adaptation of Reanimator amuses me to no end.
Yes. I really want to drill down into kind of how your career developed. I think we should talk Superman first, then because I want to because a lot of Superman stuff's coming out right now.
It's a hot Superman.
It's a hot topic.
Me hate Superman.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. It's a Bizarro shirt.
I was going to ask if that was a reversed image.
No. This is nothing reversed here.
No, I honestly thought it was the camera.
That's awesome.
No. This is I believe it is the Bruce Timm animated series Bizarro shield design.
Nice.
If I could, I would have a t-shirt for every shield.
Oh, no kidding. Before we go into other areas, since we're on the shield specifically, I was sitting once at a restaurant with friends of mine. I think it was a convention weekend, and I'd gotten together with friends that were all superhero fans, but none of them were comic artists like myself.
Right.
And we got onto the unbelievably, it's amazing any of us ever got dates topic of
Chad and I are still waiting.
Variations on the Superman shield across different eras and different incarnations of the character. And I went to illustrate a point I was making, and I grabbed a napkin and took a pen. And because I wasn't like penciling it first and being really particular about it, I just drew the yellow shapes and then put the outline around it.
Wow. And that's how you did it?
And well, not normally.
You don't normally start with the negative space.
But if you're penciling, you can draw the bounding thing and then make the S shape and then like erase the bits you don't want. I was drawing with a pen on a napkin. So I did it that way. And everybody else at the table looked at me like I just did a magic trick at the table.
Yeah.
They were like, what's going on with the...
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I've drawn it a lot, guys. I can kind of do it in my sleep at this point.
I know the little, the yellow, like comma. I know the fish in the middle. I know the fish at the bottom.
Do you guys, setting aside favorite version of the character overall, do you have a favorite version of the S shield?
My answer will be
I do.
Mine would just be very lame, but the classic, because I am in my 50s, it's the Bronze Age classic with the the whole thing. Though the Fleischer S I've always loved.
Yeah,
and I think that Alex Ross kicked ass. And that's basically what we're getting in the movie. And
everything you're naming is in my top 5.
What's your favorite?
George Reeves.
George Reeves. I've got a George Reeves shield T-shirt.
I mean, I love my love for the Christopher Reeve Superman films eclipses my love for the 50s Adventures of Superman TV series.
Right.
But not only did I grow up watching reruns of that in syndication, but there is something I like about the way the serifs are stylized a little differently on that than any of the other versions. There's a slight upward arc of the middle swoop of the S that I just...
It's a little rounded.
It's a little rounded to me. Like you almost can see the like chains bursting across its chest. A little bit with the way it's stylized.
It is a good one.
I don't think they ever did that on that show.
Did he never break chains?
I don't remember. I mean, I know he like
plenty of guns.
I know he tore chains apart and bent bars and broke through more walls than you.
He took pistols and bent them. That was always great.
Yeah, but I don't remember him doing the
However, Chris, don't forget that he also would duck out of the way of guns when thrown at him, which I never understood.
If you're George Reeves and someone's throwing a prop gun at your face, you understand it pretty quickly, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's one thing they've done more in more recent iterations, including Tyler Hoechlin on Superman and Lois, and I think, and Superman Returns as well. Is that 3-dimensional thing?
Yeah, the sort of popped out.
That's something I'm not really fond of. It's just like, why? Does it need to be bas relief?
I'm also not a fan of anything that makes it look like the suit is armored.
Yeah.
I mean, the Henry Cavill suit is beautifully made, but it looks like body armor, which doesn't make a lot of sense for me for Superman.
I don't
and
like
also
it.
I remember there was a point when fans were excited over the possibility that we might see Henry Cavill Superman in the black costume. I'm like, I'm still waiting for him to be in the color costume.
Yeah.
The trends, thanks to Chad and I talk about it a lot. I actually think it's weirdly non-committal embarrassment about doing the subject matter, that they think people can't handle color. And James Gunn is actually one of the guys who came in and corrected some of that.
Whether it's genuinely the case or not, to me, all the Zack Snyder DC films feel like he wants to just be making big sci-fi epics, and if he puts DC characters in it, he can get Warner Brothers to pay for it. It doesn't feel like it's being driven by a deep love of the source material. It feels like he would rather make you forget the source material.
Or at least, I'm going to show you my take, which is more awesome than you could have imagined. So I think he actually, like, from what he would say around Watchmen, when he did Watchmen, he would talk about, no, I've always loved this stuff. But I think in his mind, the things he likes are anti the actual source material. He likes the idea of them being gods among us, and they're
lofty. Loves it. He just doesn't understand it.
That's exactly it. He loves it. He just doesn't understand it. Boom. And again, he's done some interesting things, and as a director, he can do an amazing sequence. But man, did I not dig those movies. Sorry.
And for people who do, that's fine. That's not Superman to me. And I'm
same
excited.
Here.
I thought Superman and Lois got the character, and I think everything James Gunn has said indicates
sounds right.
He gets the character, and as we record this, we're 2 days out from the trailer, and we're all losing our mind.
With the motion poster when it posted, I just happened to be awake, so I was like, because it was somewhere in the middle of the early morning, and I just had to send it to Chad. I mean, this is a thing where, all right, I have been bitten before, disappointed, but I'm still an 8-year-old. Like, if a new Superman Returns was the same way. All the teaser images and all that, I was like going, oh my God, we're getting a new Superman. This is going to be great. So I'm in that zone again.
The thing I find the most frustrating about Superman Returns, because there's a lot about it I like. There's a lot about it I like.
Yeah.
My biggest frustration with it is that I think the film's biggest weakness is the as far as the balance of, okay, we want to do a continuation.
I know exactly
of the early Christopher Reeve films, so we're gonna revisit that and then try to move it forward into an original direction. And they spent too much time revisiting and not enough time, like, get that out of the way and then go tell your story. And not, that was an error in judgment on the first film. If you look at the first 2 X-Men movies that Bryan Singer did, his first movie did all the world building, and then he told a better story in the second film. If we had gotten a sequel to Superman Returns, I bet that movie would have been amazing.
I actually agree, and actually I never thought about, like, where he would have gone, because what we got did feel, I mean, you agree, Chad, right? I mean, with what we're getting at, the whole idea is that Singer was so slavish in his, I want to connect this to the Donner film, that he actually didn't give anybody new beats. All he did was he brought in an edge, a little bit of an edge, which was welcome. But really, he was trying to, as you say, do a sequel decades later.
Yeah, it was kind of this weird thing, like, oh, we feel like we have to retread the same ground. It's like the reasons that J.J. Abrams gave for why Force Awakens was such a close cousin to A New Hope as far as the plot and all that stuff. Like, I don't really get why anybody thought that was ever necessary.
That you need to actually just tell a new story.
You know,
maybe have Lex Luthor not be obsessed with real estate a second time. Maybe not have another wacky assistant.
I mean, there's so many stories they could have drawn from.
The world's most brilliant criminal only surrounds himself with idiots. You know,
right.
Sorry.
So, but I still loved it. I remember being very bummed out at the time that other people weren't digging it as much as I did.
I do think Brandon Routh was perfect.
He was great.
Yeah. Great casting. I mean, you know, as much as I'm not a huge fan of the Zack Snyder films, like casting, not the problem.
Yeah, not the problem.
You know, I'm not crazy about the Ben Affleck Batman, but Ben Affleck wasn't the problem.
No.
You know, it was the stories he was in.
Yeah, it was the aesthetic, and it was the overarching philosophy, which was you will be awed by these people. And I'm like, aren't they heroes? You know, where's the thing that where they help and they're awesome and all that stuff? Well, no, it's people falling to their knees in front of Batman and the Flash or whoever's like, go save us. Oh, I hate it.
You do a rewatch of Superman the movie, and you just look at, like, in I don't know how many minutes of runtime are spent at the Daily Planet, but in the time that you are there, the characters of not just Lois but like Jimmy Olsen and Perry White are so like it's all there.
Yeah,
that you are engaged with them. You know these people. You want to spend more time with them. You want to spend more time in that environment. And you know, we haven't had that in the movies for a while. Perry, I mean, like, I like the casting, but you know, he was just the boss at the paper.
Yeah, no, the whole thing was so shoehorned. He was trying to, like, okay, I'll build kind of the Superman Lois thing, but even Clark is a non-entity, and you're like, that's a big mistake. So it's just becomes this
discernible different personality from Superman. Just like, oh, he's stopped wearing the outfit.
Yeah, he walks in with glasses at the end, and we're supposed to go,
so satisfying, everything I wanted from Clark Kent. Like, no,
yeah, exactly. He comes in, and everyone goes, "You're Superman, right?" Because you've done absolutely nothing to not be Superman right now, except for you're wearing glasses. Sorry, still not a fan, though I love Campbell, and he deserved so much better.
Yeah.
I always struggled with the Smallville series. I would have liked it a lot more if they would have presented it as, this is just an alternate reality take on Superman. But they solved it as, this is a prequel. This is his early days. This is the character that ends up being the Superman you all know and love. And I'm like, nope, there's no way you get from here to there. Because the entire population of Metropolis would see Superman on day one and go, but that's Clark.
That's Clark.
Because he looked like a full-grown adult. Half the town had seen him do crazy things.
I know.
Every future Superman character, for some reason, is showing up in this small town in Kansas.
I know. I hated the structure of the way they decided to do that. It was not good thinking.
Like I said, if they were just like, we want to tell the story of Superman where it's all of the backstory and all of the themes, but it's not about a guy that puts on tights and a cape.
Yeah.
It's just Clark Kent and how he finds his way in the world with the things he can do.
Yeah.
I'd have been all in on that.
Did you ever read...
But that's not how they sold it.
Did you ever read Busiek's Secret Identity?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, because that was kind of that idea of, like, what if someone in our reality who also happened to be named Clark Kent, but develops these powers, and people already know about the character from the comics, but this guy's like, how do I use these powers in the real world? And it's really, really great. Did you ever read that, Chad?
No, I didn't. I need to.
Oh, it's highly recommended. Plus, it's got gorgeous art.
It's very, very good. And I love, even without doing that kind of like Elseworlds alternate reality thing,
Yeah.
Anytime someone can take these characters and find a new beat with them that we've never seen before, I
Yeah.
always love it. Was it the animated Man of Tomorrow that they had a scene with like teenage Clark Kent doing like a sleepover at a friend's house, and they're watching some old sci-fi movie, and it's about scary alien invaders. And as
I
the friend is talking about how awful and terrible and scary the
yes.
aliens are, like Clark is just getting more and more quietly upset to the point that
Yeah.
like Pa Kent has to come pick him up and take him home. And
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
like it's
It's a
just like,
great
of course that would be part of his childhood. Of course.
because a good writer will find like we know this character so long, he's been almost around for a century, but if you can just contextualize and go what's something we really haven't done yet that isn't going to take you in a wildly different direction, but just humanize and round out the character. I love that shit too. Sorry
I
for the
was
language.
I was never sympathetic to the people voicing the opinion that the Superman character is boring because he's a
No.
Boy Scout or any of that stuff.
No.
Like,
Yeah,
okay,
I don't.
I totally get the frustration of, you know, if you're dealing with the upper power level depiction of Superman, that's hard to find ways to challenge him physically. That I'm totally sympathetic to.
Sure.
But the idea that the character is uninteresting because he has one of the strongest moral compasses in the DC universe, and he's you know, a good guy and will do the right thing and is always looking to help people and protect people. Like, no, I mean, not only is that who the character is,
Mm-hmm.
but if you find that boring, that says more about you.
It's true.
And it shows a lack of imagination, you know, of how that can make how that is challenging for the character.
Yeah. I am the old man shouting at clouds constantly simply because I will say there's a generational divide of sorts, and I blame the 90s, which was not just the grim and gritty era, but it really was a dark time for comics just because the overarching trends were so ridiculous. And even at the time, I'm reading them going like, wow, seriously, guys? Oh, good. That's what we need, more pouches. And yeah, thank God Batman's picking up a gun now, you know, whatever it is. So that time I didn't enjoy. But the younger people I meet who are in their 20s and 30s and they're comics fans, they always mock my love of the goody goody guys. Like, I love an anti-hero. I always liked the Punisher. I always liked, you know, Wolverine, all those guys. But yeah, like Captain America or Cyclops of the X-Men. I'm like, the good guys who are just good seems like they are the ones that are laughed at because that there's no character there. I'm like, no, there's a lot of character there. In the
I
world, it takes a lot of character to be that moral.
I always liked Cyclops in the X-Men because to me, he was the guy who most felt the weight of responsibility of
Yeah.
Xavier's vision.
Yeah.
And not only representing that in the field, but carrying it forward into the future. And like,
Yes.
that's interesting. That's a
Yes.
compelling character. It's not about the fact that he shoots beams out of his eyes. It's about you know, that sense of responsibility he feels.
Chad, I know you want to jump in here because if there's one thing, Chad, just it's a hot button. He will jump in and say, no, it's all about the beams that shoot out of his eyes.
I was just thinking there was somebody commented recently, and I think I may have misinterpreted him. I thought that he was defending Man of Steel, but I think he was actually arguing the other side of it. The way he worded it was strange. But he says that basically saying that Man of Steel didn't work because we're conditioned to think of Superman as a big blue Boy Scout. And I said, no, we're not conditioned. That's who the character is. He is a big blue Boy.
If you go back to those earliest Siegel and Schuster stories where he's like grabbing generals out of the tent and taking them to the front lines and all that.
I love it.
You know, where he's a much rougher character.
He is.
He's still defending the little guy against, you know, he's still punching upwards.
Yes.
And he's still concerned with helping others.
Yeah.
In a way that like that just didn't feel like that was the focus of those.
The
films.
early days are literally him. I mean, Golden Age. I have all the omnibuses and things like that, and I love the character across the whole spectrum. But that early stuff, you have entire issues where it's like the first couple of issues of action, he's helping miners, and there's the thing about a black marketeer of used tires. Honest to God, they are reselling old tires that are threadbare, and all these accidents are happening in Metropolis. And Superman's like going, "That's not right," and goes after these people. And it's a little bit before the mad scientists kick in, but I'm just like sitting there going,
well,
like,
the character's popularity was a response to Depression era frustrations.
right,
So
exactly.
so all of the people he was fighting were the people that if you were the little guy during that time, that you'd be like, I like to see taking down a peg or two.
Yeah, yeah. He's taking care of those fat cats.
Yeah.
All right.
I was go ahead.
No, I was just going to say one thing, because every now and then organized brain kicks in. One thing, we mentioned all this hot news. I think we probably all need to chime in on what we think of the first reveals that we're getting. Poster, a little bit of the theme music. And again, we don't have the teaser trailer, but I haven't even talked to Chad about it except for us like tweeting back and forth.
Yeah.
Well, you're our guest, Chris. What did you think?
Well, I mean, it's hard to not hear the music and get a little teary eyed. I don't even know 100% whether to assume that's the music we'll hear
right
in the actual film, because I think they're being very smart in the marketing of this. And like, if you're trying to signal your intention about where your heart is, with this film, referencing a version of Superman people already know isn't the dumbest thing in the world to do.
No.
Now, it may be that we do hear that theme in the film, but I think we're at least going to be getting it. It's not going to be as slavish a revisiting as Superman Returns was, where it's like this all sounds like it could have been John Williams tracks. So the poster is gorgeous. It was one of my pet peeves as a fan is stuff that you find online that purports to be a new poster or a new trailer, and it's just something some fan made, and sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not. But it messes, like, is this real or isn't it?
Yeah. I got fooled a couple of times. I did. There were some really good fan made posters.
Oh yeah. But no, this all looks great. I mean, the reason I've been optimistic from early on is, James Gunn. Not that I've loved every single thing he's ever done,
right?
But he tends to make good films.
Yeah,
he genuinely loves the comics. And if you look at his career, it's not like you get the same movie out of him every time. He does a different style of filmmaking and storytelling depending on the subject matter. So I'm not expecting his Superman film to feel like Guardians of the Galaxy, or Peacemaker, or anything else.
He has a voice which is recognizable. But you're absolutely right. I think that as a writer, he goes at it to make the story fit that thing. He's not just saying, I'm going to put a James Gunn sheen on this. He's going, what does this story need? And how can I bring it about? So yeah, I don't fear that it will be a Guardians ripoff. I'm just like,
and I'm not expecting his Superman to be anything as crass or R-rated as like the Suicide Squad was.
Yeah.
But if you look at the Suicide Squad and realize he managed to bring things as silly as the Polka Dot Man and flippin' Starro the Conqueror to live action, and made them work. And like, I had a moment of empathy with Starro the Conqueror at the end of that film. How do you do that?
Yes.
So he's really good at the stealth heart.
Yeah, so the fact that we're getting a Superman movie with Superman, all these other superheroes, and freaking Crypto the Superdog,
We're gonna get Crypto and Metamorpho. I'm sitting there
so
going like, what
happy.
the hell?
Yes. Chris, this ties into. I was watching an old interview that you did at a comic expo like 10 something years ago.
Oh, he does his research.
Yeah, and you said it was a quick interview, and the guy, one of the things you said in the interview, which was really cool. You're speaking at the time, obviously, that one of your biggest criticisms for the comic industry at the time was that you wanted them to be a little less fearful of silliness, to embrace the inherent silliness and in the comic book universe. And this kind of ties into that. I think what we're just discussing, these things we're excited for, that most of the filmmakers would be like, no, I'm not going to touch Crypto Superdog or something.
Yeah.
Well, one of my favorite DC animated series is Batman Brave and the Bold. And one of the things I liked so much about that was, most of the time it was kind of a action comedy show. But it wasn't an all-out comedy in the sense it wasn't like joke. It was just kind of an action show that wasn't afraid to tell stories where there's a detective chimp.
Yep.
And all this really goofy Silver Age stuff, and just like, no, it is what it is. And sometimes it's going to be, it's going to lean more into the funny, and sometimes it's just going to be a straight up, action beat, or even like just a straight action scene within the story. But, if you're going to do the DC universe, it's a silly place. Comic book universes are silly places.
Yes.
I think that we are seeing, thanks to, oddly, the longevity, which some people are like going, please stop with the superhero stuff. Obviously, I'm not. But the longevity of something and the success of like the MCU, people are starting to, in the fields that aren't comics. The people who've been reading comics their whole lives, they know exactly how flexible a medium it is. They know that even within a superhero universe, you can tell every kind of story. I was going to bring up the first thing of yours I'm familiar with, Chris, was Young Heroes in Love back in the 90s, which
gosh.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. But see, here's the thing. Even at the time, I appreciated that because it was new characters. It had its own feel. It was trying for something different, but it was still in the DC continuity. And I thought, this is great because it's fresh. And all comics don't need to be one thing. So we as readers know that. But I think now with the TV shows, like Marvel has tried, they've done comedy, they've done hardcore political intrigue, they've done all kinds of stuff within their universe, including like Agatha All Along and WandaVision. There's room for every type of story.
Films. How different are the 3 Captain America films from each other?
Yes.
And that's a franchise within the franchise.
Yes. And then how different are they from Guardians, which again, same universe. And then you get Russo's, who somehow with the 2 screenwriters are able to somehow make all of that congeal.
Yeah, it's incredible.
I'm sorry I said congeal. That made me a little sick to my stomach. But makes, Infinity War and Endgame make it cohesive. And I love that. And I think people are starting to, if they're not being immediately snide, which again, that happens a lot with genre stuff, but they go, wow, you can do whatever you want within a superhero universe.
Yeah. I don't think the superhero trend is going to last forever. I mean, in the same way that there was a time in the 50s and 60s when like every other thing that came out was a Western.
Yep.
And Westerns never went away, but they stopped being the go-to genre to the extent that they were.
Yeah.
And I think in the same way that Star Wars came out in 1977 and space opera shoot 'em ups became the big thing for a while. I think the revolution in special effects, I mean, aside from just people wanting to get on the gravy train and be a copycat, I think the revolution in special effects meant that audiences always turn out for spectacle films.
Yeah.
And we'd seen, like, the 50s had all the biblical epics with casts of thousands. Like, well, now it's about spaceships and laser beams and alien planets. And so we've had that for a while. And that hasn't gone away.
No.
But then, the Marvel Universe hit, and you went from, maybe we get 1 or 2 superhero films a year to, oh my God, there's a superhero movie coming out every month, and there's TV shows and so much.
It was not planned, obviously.
Down.
And no trend is planned. It just, the zeitgeist picks it up, and there you go. And it is all cyclical, because I've made that same argument where I'm like, guys, I mean, we went from the detective stuff of the 40s, and we had the westerns of the 50s, there were the spy movies of the 60s, and sci-fi of the 70s, and it is just, none of them go away. They just will no longer be the main thing. And I have a feeling we'll have superhero movies from here on out, because finally, I think the reason we didn't beginning, okay, there is the assumption it's all for kids, which hopefully we've gotten past, but also the thing of the effects weren't ready yet. Tale of my own life, I was pitching a Green Lantern screenplay in LA when I lived there in 1999. Because I had already seen early CG stuff, and I was like, we can finally do this. And he is the most visual. And I wasn't stupid enough to try to pitch a Superman or Batman. I was like, come on, Green Lantern. No one's ever done them.
Early CGI is perfect for ring constructs.
Yeah,
that's true.
If it looks a little fake,
yeah,
so be it.
Yeah. I had him making giant can openers to open up planes in mid-flight, that kind of stuff. And I was like, this will be so cool.
Gloves. And absolutely.
Yes. Lots of hands catching things. So, I mean, it was that kind of thing came to its time, and this is the time it's in. And as you say, it'll go at some point. It'll be the next thing that takes over, and we'll still probably get, the occasional. It won't be the side characters. I don't think we're going to be like, thank God, season 3 of Brother Voodoo, but which I'd watch in a second.
Between the fact that they've been to the well so many times on the A-listers, and then the sensibility of James Gunn and his love for the C and D list characters.
Yeah,
some of the stuff coming out right now stuff that's in development right now, I'm just sort of like, seriously?
Yeah, a Clayface movie.
I mean, I'm looking forward to it, but it's kind of mind-bending that, some of these things are in development.
Chris, all I'm saying is the time is ripe for me to pitch my Golden Age vigilante movie. It's going to be awesome.
Course.
He's a cowboy on a motorcycle. The people don't get how awesome that is. All right. Anyway. So we're all excited, yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
And here's the real nerd question. Is anyone going to be up like first thing in the morning when that trailer drops? I think I actually will set my alarm.
Yeah, it'll be 8 a.m.
I'm
for me.
enough of a night owl, especially when I'm working comics and don't have anything to make me adhere to the schedule of the normal sane world.
Right.
It's more about it's more likely that rather than getting up early, I will just stay up until the trailer drops. And then, we'll see how long it takes my level of excitement to die down to the point where I can sleep.
Dude, just saying.
I'm probably gonna watch it like 5 or 6 times right away.
No doubt. Even just that motion poster and hearing that take on the theme, I was like, oh, I'm not gonna hit play again, am I? I'm hitting play again. I want to know what his
voice sounds like. I want to.
Me too.
Why am I blanking on her name right now? The Lois Lane.
Rachel Brosnahan.
That was the thing that first got me excited, because I didn't know David Cornsweet when they first announced him. But I had watched. I had been a huge fan of the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and she has that fast talking city girl vibe.
It was so obvious. We did an entire video on that just because it was like, was anyone surprised? I mean, she was up against some other talented actresses, but I'm sitting there going like, no, have you watched that show? Lois. She's Lois Lane.
Yeah.
And I was pointing over there, and the show's not even over there. I don't know what I'm pointing at. Anyway.
Very, very excited. I can't wait for the trailer. I don't know. I don't even know what to expect from this trailer. Is it going to lay out the whole plot? Probably not.
It's a teaser.
I just want a taste of what the movie's going to feel like.
I think it's going to be like a 30-second thing, and it's probably just going to be something like Lois standing there and suddenly a shadow, and then he's like, Miss Lane, and that'll be like the whole thing. And I'll still be like, which is a rough estimation.
So we've had so many animated and live action versions of Superman that have name dropped Crypto, but it's always just been some dog at the Kent farm.
Yeah,
and they're being cute with the name.
Yeah.
We don't know if this is going to be classic either. We don't know if this is his pet from Krypton.
I think
I don't know.
James has said he's an alien, so it's like
so
whether
it's essentially he said that,
whether it's his dog from Krypton or they changed the origin, I don't know. But I mean, we're getting a flying dog in a cape. And imagine, if you will, the scale of just a scene of Superman and Crypto playing catch.
I can't. I
should say.
I'm just
that's full on Silver Age comics. It's him like throwing something and around Saturn, and then Crypto gets it.
And this is something that Gunn has said several times in interviews now, including this one that just came out today. This great article in the.
Thanks for sending that to me.
It's
good.
Yeah.
That
he said this on an interview he did for Creature Commandos. He was talking about Superman briefly, and that there's going to be the story that he wrote is very much influenced by Silver Age era of the comics, specifically the science fiction elements of the Silver Age Superman.
And also All-Star Superman, which itself is a love letter to the wackiness.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but but like that's sort of like, well, I would have expected nothing else from James Gunn, and that doesn't narrow down a lot what he could be dealing with.
No, there's so many things. But one of the first things that Brendan mentioned, we were brainstorming. What does that mean? And the first thing you said was bottled City of Kandor.
Oh, God damn it!
Could you imagine that we already have that? That's already there.
I love that the story is that we're being dropped into the universe with the story in progress.
So, I mean, all these things are on the table, apparently.
If we go to the Fortress of Solitude and there is a giant gold key.
I know.
Yes.
I don't think we're getting that because I think that teaser thing where it's like the trailer drops on Thursday and you're seeing the snow, and I think that might be the hatch.
But if any filmmaker alive
would give us the gold key
where Superman lifts the key
please.
The giant golden door. Oh my God, set into a frozen mountain. That is just the best thing ever.
Of Jor-El
and Lara
holding up the globe of Krypton. Oh, come on!
It's all I want. It's all I want. Oh my God, I am. Oh
Fortress
wait,
robots. I want Fortress robots.
I want Fortress robots. I don't care if they're John Byrne or some other design, but give me a Kellex, and I'm going to be all right. Oh, Interplanetary Zoo, anybody? Yes, please.
I mean, it's nice with like I love how the 90s Superman animated series built that stuff up over time, but you have the luxury of doing that when you're doing something episodic over dozens of episodes.
I don't know if you're on the same page with myself, and I think Chad agrees. You can say if you do or not, but I honestly think that the platonic ideal of Batman and Superman were those animated series, because they hit the right tone between this is for kids, this is for adults. They introduced really cheesy Silver Age concepts, but they smarted them up and modernized them, making Brainiac the Krypton computer that becomes sentient. I mean, all these things are kind of brilliant.
That is a brilliant way
that was
to go
brilliant.
With Brainiac.
I did like that.
I have not seen any version of Brainiac done in comics since that I thought was as powerful as giving him that Krypton connection.
It was great. Plus, also great voice acting. It was just like, wow, that's what he sounds like.
I assume you know what the direction was that they gave to Corey Burton on what they wanted Brainiac to sound like. It's the control voice from the Outer Limits.
Oh, of course. We have gained control. We control the vertical.
Your set. We control the vertical.
We control the horizontal. Jeez, that's perfect.
Can you give us the control voice from the Outer Limits? And he did it.
That's
perfect.
Perfect.
That's Brainiac.
Yeah. Oh my God. All right. Yeah. This is again a love hole episode. I can't get it. I do have of course the box sets of the Batman animated series and Superman, and those are just so damn good.
The thing about the Batman and Superman animated series is I think their highs are as good as the great stuff in comics, and there's absolutely stuff in the comics I love every bit as much.
Yes.
But it's the stuff in comics is like these runs get they come in like little fits and starts, and then there's a bunch of stuff in between that's sort of like, it's okay, it's not really my thing. Whereas there's like what, maybe 3 or 4
Yeah.
Batman animated series episodes. I'm like, oh, that's kind of a stinker. Like
Yeah, they're few and far between.
most of it is somewhere between really good and brilliant.
Yeah, yeah.
Superman, I don't love
I
it
don't
quite
think
as
they were as
dearly.
inspired, but it's so good.
It is so good, and yeah, they did. I mean, another property I've been lucky to be associated with is Young Justice, and I think
Oh,
one of the
we're
things I
gonna
like
get
about
there.
Young Justice, I won't go too deeply into it then if we're going to get there eventually,
No, but did you
but
like the series before you got the gig?
oh yeah, well I'll. Do we want to go there now? Because I could tell the
Let's go
story of
there.
how.
Yeah, why
Definitely.
not?
So I had met Greg Weisman before we worked on Young Justice together. Greg Weisman, who's one of the 2 producers of Young Justice, Greg Weisman and Brandon Vietti were the 2 producers, head writers, showrunners. I had actually drawn a 10-page story that Greg wrote
Huh.
before I ever met him. I just was randomly assigned a story. There was a period in the late 90s when DC was doing a lot of those 80-page giants,
Oh yeah.
and they were revisiting that in
And one of them is very rare because they had to take it off the market. Isn't that the one with the babysitter of baby Clark and the babysitter, he ends up in the microwave in that little short story, and
oh
because of
geez,
that
I don't know that one. That wasn't one
they
I had a
yanked that
story in.
80-page giant off the shelves, so it's
Whew.
very rare.
Oh, geez.
Well, I mean, the
But
whole idea is that he's invulnerable, but then they're like,
sure.
wait, what if people actually put babies in microwaves? Yeah.
Anyway, but they were doing things that were kind of callbacks to earlier runs, and
Mm,
he did a story long after the heyday of Justice League Europe that was a Justice League Europe story that included Captain Atom,
yeah.
and they are at Notre Dame Cathedral, and something magical happens, and the gargoyles on Notre Dame Cathedral come to life, and it was a cute little pastiche reference to
Do
the
gargoyles?
Gargoyle series that Greg
Yep.
Weisman had created at Disney, and it was all
Yeah.
very cute. It was a little 10-page story, and I got to draw that. I met him at a convention and got to introduce myself as the guy that drew that story, and we hit it off. And then I got to know him better because we invited him as a guest to a science fiction convention I helped start in Minnesota many years ago called Convergence, still running
Wow.
today, July 4th weekend.
Wow. Congrats.
If you're in that part of the country, come check it out.
Never been.
But so we got to know each other and had this ambition to work together again at some point. I heard he was doing this new superhero animated series, Young Justice. And at the time, I had been doing work for DC. The most extended thing I had done was I was the regular artist on the Batman Strikes, which was the
Yeah.
tie-in comic for the Batman. Which,
Yeah.
I'm a fan of the show, but I spent years having to explain what I meant to people as, that Batman animated series that everybody loved. This is the one that came after that.
Yeah. This is the one with the Rastafarian Joker.
Yes, and aside from the Joker's weird hair, the biggest challenge that show had is it was the show that got thrown on the grenade of being the first departure from the Bruce Timm, Kevin Conroy, Mark
It was
Hamill
not going to compare.
Batman
Yeah,
universe.
that was the problem.
And fans hated that it wasn't that.
Yeah.
And it hadn't sunk in yet that, you know what, they're going to just keep doing Batman shows. We're going to get a new one every 5 years. It'll, if you don't
just
like
wait
this
till
one,
Brave and the
just wait
Bold
until
comes out.
Yeah. But that was its moment in time. Anyway, I had done that comic series. The way I'd gotten that job was I had been doing the occasional, just things like that 10-pager. I was doing the occasional fill in on Young Heroes in Love, on things like they were using me for occasional stories on the Justice League animated tie-in comic. Like I said, I got my foot in the door at DC doing animation style stuff, and then that's what they tended to think of me for going forward. But the way I got the Batman Strikes job was before that comic was announced. I saw that there was going to be a new Batman animated series, and I thought, well, I know how this works. DC's going to do a tie-in comic. If I can find out who the editor is going to be, I could try to get that job. And to shorten the story, I ended up getting the job. I was the regular artist on that book for its 50-issue run. I drew all but a handful of the issues.
Wow. Good run.
So yeah, it was great. One of the best experiences I've had. I got to draw a lot of Batman, and that was really fun. So I hear about this new Young Justice series. I think I'm going to try this trick again. By the time I could find who the editor was going to be, they already had a creative team in place. And I was like, oh well, would have been fun. It would have been fun to work with Greg. Would have been fun to be on another regular superhero title. And if you recall, the 2-part pilot first story for Young Justice came out a good chunk of time before the regular weekly series started airing. So that came out, and I was like, oh, this is great.
Yeah, it was good.
I really regret not getting to work on that comic now.
Yeah.
And then I got a call from that editor at DC who said the artist that was originally assigned to it was leaving to go do a different project. Was I still interested in drawing the book?
Snap.
And so I got to take over with issue 5 and was the regular artist for the rest of that run.
It's great. And that's still early days too, that the show is only growing at that point. So you're getting in nice and early.
Oh yeah. I mean, we were part of the way through season 1.
Mm-hmm.
And that meant, there wasn't a lot of opportunity to do things in the comic that could get reflected back into the show at that point. Although there's a little bit of stuff towards the end of season 2, like we had a Ra's al Ghul appearance in the comic that Ubu, his big bald henchman Ubu, showed up, and he hadn't been featured in the TV show yet. So I got to design the comic version of him. That was always my favorite
then
part
they
of
had
doing
to
that
base
book.
his animated look on what you drew. Nice.
Anytime a DC character appeared in the comic that had not yet been designed for the show, it meant I got to design them.
Sweet.
Kid in a candy shop. Oh my God. We and so mostly that ended up applying to villains. So I got to design the Young Justice versions of Grodd, the Collector of Worlds, which is our version of Brainiac, Deadshot, Match, who was sort of Superboy's version of Bizarro. In the TV show, when last we saw him, he looked like Superboy, but his eyes had turned a different color. He had several further appearances in the comic, and every time he showed up again, he had mutated further.
Degenerating.
So I got to lean into full Bizarro. The happiest answer I've ever gotten to a question about what I could do in the artwork on a comic. So I was trying to figure out how do I do a Bizarro design that isn't just completely derivative of what we've seen before. And I said, does he have to be symmetrical? And they said no. Got it. So he just became this misshapen monstrosity. Oh, so fun to do. And then in the most recent run of Young Justice comics, we did Young Justice Targets. I got to design Metallo, which is really fun.
Cool.
John Corbin,
and
the man with the kryptonite heart.
And I got to address one of my pet peeves about Metallo, which is I hate when he just has a rectangular opening in his chest and the kryptonite is just sitting there it's inviting you to just yoink. So I basically had a chamber that was the opening was incorporated into the anatomical shapes a little more than just a big rectangle, but it was behind a metallic rib cage. So
sweet.
You could see it in there,
You would
and
still have to get through some stuff like a
but you've got
cage to pull it out.
it was like in an armature behind a metallic rib cage. So
This is going to be one of the most basic questions. This is becoming now the panel. You're now on a panel at a convention. But one of the most basic questions I would ask, I wanted to be a comic artist when I was a youngster. I did one graphic novel. I went to art school, did one graphic novel, got out. I'm not an artist. I'm a writer. But it happened. I'm proud of what I was able to accomplish. But still, the question I would ask, it's probably one you've answered a million times, is what has been your favorite project and what's your favorite character? Like, as far as actually pencil to page, who do you enjoy drawing the most?
It's hard to say. I mean, I'm never good at picking favorites of things. You asking me favorite food,
and
favorite,
you've done
whatever.
thousands of characters. I mean,
well, the thing is, like, I enjoy different projects for different things. I mean,
sure.
Young Justice is probably the most satisfying in the sense of I really felt like I got to have a creative voice in things beyond just, the script shows up and I draw what's in the script.
Pencil for hire.
Plus getting to engage with a really dedicated, enthusiastic fan base.
Yeah.
Over many years has been great. But favorites, I mean, probably the three highlights would be that series, the Batman Strikes, because again, I got to draw over about 45 issues over 4.5 years of Batman, which doesn't get a lot better than that. And then I've got to do some Doctor Who stuff for Titan Comics.
That leads to another thing.
Okay.
I mean, this is all just the typical. We're of course huge Doctor Who fans as well. But I was going to ask, just because when you look at, I looked at your bibliography on your website, which was such an eye opener because
it's horribly out of date.
It's horribly out of date. I was going to tell you that. By the way, I hope your convention from 2018 went well or whatever. But no, I'm joking. But basically, it was eye opening because you're one of those artists that can change your style so much. Also, you have dropped into so many series, and like you said, your longest run, something like Young Justice, that is where of course, you can latch on and go, oh, I can follow him. But then I realized, looking through your thing, I've seen and read so many of your things without realizing this is that guy too. When did you get pegged, not just as the animation guy, but also you got pegged as the likeness guy? Because you've done so many, Star Trek and Doctor Who and things where you have to do photo likenesses.
Boy, well, I mean, I don't know how much I have a big reputation for the likenesses. I mean, those have come along, certainly. It's all been stuff I
you're really good at it.
Well, thank you. I mean, I got to do a 2-part Batman 66 story for DC.
Dude, and of course I've got that.
And my approach in doing that was a lot. I mean, a lot of the artists who did great work on that series. I'm not knocking anybody else's approach, but a lot of the artists that worked on that, went a little cartoony.
Yeah.
And my approach was, I want to draw this straight, and I want to make it look as much like the TV show as I can, because I think if you're reading the comic, you're not wanting a generic Batman comic. You're wanting the experience.
You want Adam
TV
West
show.
and Burt Ward. Yeah.
So I want to give that experience as much as I can within the pages of the comic and within the limitations of what actor likenesses we were allowed to use.
Were there characters that they say you can't draw it like this person?
I think when I did my story, they couldn't use Alan Napier for Alfred.
Oh wow!
I know. Or Neil Hamilton for Commissioner Gordon. I think they might have gotten both of those later. I know that one of the reasons that you don't see Batgirl early on in those is that it took them a while to get something worked out with Yvonne Craig, but they got there eventually.
Great series.
But the other
Loved
thing
it.
was I love the whole series. I love all 3 seasons of it. But far and away, I love the first season episodes the most. Because in my opinion, the production value is a little better. They're putting a little more effort into their set pieces and their action and things like that. You can see it in like the lighting and just there's a little more atmosphere to it. The writing's a little fresher. But the biggest thing is like they're good Batman stories that just happen to be played a little over the top, and there's a bit of a wink and a nod to it. By season 3, it's a sitcom.
Yeah.
The tone really shifts.
It becomes total. I mean, you do get the Batusi early on, but I will say.
Absolutely. But I'm saying the plots. You could do a version of that story straight. It would be a good Batman story.
And actually, some of those first season, second season are actually based loosely on actual Silver Age, Batman stories. So I love it.
Did you know that Bill Finger wrote a story for that? Yeah, the Clockwork story.
Oh, cool.
That documentary about Bill Finger it tears your heart out.
Oh yeah. I mean, do you think any of the people that Bill Finger was dealing with when he wrote that story realized they were talking to the guy that created the character?
No, just like when Jerry Siegel delivered packages to DC Comics in the late 60s, no one knew that was the guy who created Superman either. Until I think it was like Mort Weisinger or Julie Schwartz was like, "Oh, hey Jerry, how you doing? Do you need some money?" I mean, that's just horrifying.
Oh yeah. I forget now if it was Jerry or Joe, but one of them apparently.
Oh yeah, I don't know. It was Jerry or Joe.
The Superman musical in the 60s. Not only were they not invited, but one of them was like in front of the theater looking at the marquee and hadn't seen it because they didn't have the money for a ticket.
Oh Jesus!
Like, for fuck's sake,
Hey Chad, did you? Because I mean, Chad and I are the same age. I don't want to ask you your age, Chris. But
I'm 73.
Oh, you're looking good, man.
We actually all share the same birth year. I did.
Okay, nice. Yeah. Do you guys? I will include everybody. Do you remember when they did the one primetime broadcast of "It's a Bird, It's a Plane, It's Superman" in the 1970s on TV?
I have never seen it. I'm aware that
it's
version
not a good
exists.
Musical. Yeah.
Well, everything I've ever heard is that the original stage version on Broadway was a much better show than what they mounted for the TV show.
The thing that always bugged me about it, again, being I care about the character and the comics first, and then if you're going to adapt it, do a good job. You listen to that musical and you're like, where's Superman in this? There's like a theme for him, and then there's like whole songs for like the gangster and his mall, and you're like, who cares about them? This is bullshit. Lois gets a bit. But anyway, so oh, sorry, I'm getting really worked up. But I remember as a kid watching it. Because my parents are like, "Oh, it's a Superman musical. You're gonna love this." And I remember watching it going like, "The suit is terrible. The songs are bad." But the thing I always remembered, when his X-ray vision kicks in, because I think his powers get conked out at some point, and it's like you can see through anything, and it's like, yeah, and it's like, what are you looking at right now? And he just goes, "Ugh, bones." That's the thing that's always stuck in my. Superman just goes,
so weird line.
Bones. Okay. Anyway,
I discovered randomly about 5 or so years ago online, someone did a production of it like at a local theater down in Texas or someplace random. That I would, and when I discovered this, like it had been 5 years earlier that they did it. It's not like I had the option of like, if I go down to Texas, I can see it.
Yeah.
They did a production of it that all the production design was based on the Fleischer cartoons.
Oh, awesome.
They had Lois Lane in like the period 1940s Fleischer
little
Lois
pillbox
Lane
hat.
Superman had the Fleischer costume. Oh my
dude.
God, I would love you. Like, I don't care how lousy the musical is. I would have gone just to watch that.
I'm saying it right now. That'll be something I'm looking for. And this is way off topic, but I saw that someone in Chicago.
I'm sorry, what was on topic at this point?
Yeah,
we're just
we're very, very, very good point. But
Not that I'm complaining.
no, a Chicago theater
this is
company.
what my conversations are like. Go ahead.
This same here. This theater company did a stage show based on the first superpowered female character in comic strips. She predates Wonder Woman and so forth. The Invisible Scarlet O'Neil.
Oh, yeah, I've never read any of that, but I've heard the
I
name.
have. It's cute. What's weird is she has a superpower, but she spends most of her time kind of like helping out kids with problems and stuff, and she sneaks around invisibly, and it's more cute than action oriented. But they did a stage show, and they made the set look exactly like the comic strip, and they had like thought balloons and things like that would pop up, and the invisible effects were pretty cool. I was like, wow, way to go. Plus, who the hell remembers the Invisible Scarlet O'Neil besides me and very old people? But anyway.
To bring it back to Superman for a second, are you guys
please.
Have you guys heard much of the old Superman radio show from the 40s?
Yes.
Okay.
Have you, Chad?
I've never listened to it at length, but I've heard bits of it.
You should definitely listen to the run where Batman and Robin are introduced, because the actor really? Bud Collyer wanted a vacation.
Oh, that's right. You told me about that. Yeah,
they did a few stories with Batman and Robin. It's kind of funny because you expect Batman to, if not be like really gravelly, at least really serious, and he's not like, that. Hi, I'm Batman.
Yeah, he's like, hey, Robin.
And then, but you think
Superman's still sick from kryptonite.
You think about what Batman was like in the comics at the time, and you're like, yeah, I suppose that's not that crazy, but it's a little jarring.
I'm always surprising people who aren't, nerdy for the whole history of comics, and they all think of Batman because of what he is now.
Yeah,
that he is this grim, like Dark Avenger, and I'm like, he was that for a year. Okay.
Yeah.
He was literally that for only a year. They bring in Robin and his ears shorten, and suddenly he's talking to his chum. It's literally
the story that first told the Red Hood version of the Joker's origin.
Yeah.
Starts with Batman and Robin in broad daylight giving a lecture on criminology at a college.
Yeah.
They're standing there in the room giving a lecture to a bunch of college students.
I love that stuff.
This is not a grim Avenger of the night.
No.
But the reason I brought the Superman radio show though is a lot of the stories are generic gangsters, very similar to what you would have gotten in the early black and white episodes of the 1950s TV show.
Yeah,
not shocking since some of the same producers were involved.
That's right.
But even if you go to something like probably the most epic sci-fi super villainish story they ever did, which is the whole epic serial with the Atom Man, which was basically Nazis create their own super powered soldier using kryptonite, and so he can project kryptonite radiation and threaten Superman. And like it's really cool. But what's interesting is you listen to it as you realize it doesn't feel like modern superhero stories because all those tropes haven't really been established yet.
Yeah.
They're figuring out how to get there.
Yeah.
The dark, it is amazing, but it's so like crazy. So they do this, it's kind of brilliant, but it's dark, and like I said, it plays weird. They do a brilliant thing where they send the Atom Man after Superman, and he projects kryptonite at him, and he weakens Superman, and he beats him down, and he's pouring, shooting kryptonite rays at him, and like leaves him for dead on a beach. And
the way you
Superman
do
comes back, and what they establish is he can really weaken Superman, but it's hard to absolutely kill him. He can make him really weak and inflict a lot of pain. Well, he's just really hard to kill.
Yeah.
So what they do is they send him to encounter Superman again. They lay a trap for him. He gets him in that state. They then take Superman prisoner, and they put him in an underground, like a concrete, cinder block cellar with the Atom Man, who is radiating kryptonite, and they're going to keep him there until he starves to death.
Yeah, there you go.
Wow.
But I hope at least the Nazis are going to supply Atomic Man with like a sandwich or two. Come on,
sure,
poor
but
dude.
then it becomes the thing over several episodes of Superman is like weakened and everything, but he can't overpower the Atom Man. But the Atom Man's getting impatient, and he doesn't want to stay in there anymore. And the guys, the
die
Nazis,
already, die.
The Nazis that the Atom. Well, it's not just that. It's basically he wants to leave. He's like, why am I a prisoner? Why do I have to stay in here?
Yeah.
And the Nazis that he's working for are like trying to no, this is working. You just have to wait a little longer. And so because you get this dramatic tension of, can they stick with this plan until they finally off super? Like,
that's so hilarious.
It's dramatic as hell, but like, this isn't how you do a superhero story. What is this?
A lot of the things that people do assume as tropes, or at least the things that they go, oh yeah, of course Superman has this, and then you can, of course, again, lose friends and bore people at parties where you go, he evolved, man. He was leaping. There was no supervision or anything, and and it's like Jimmy Olsen came out of the radio show, Kryptonite came out of the radio show. All this stuff came later, and now it's what we all assume.
The earliest depiction of Krypton is that they were all Supermen that could leap over buildings and have all that. And it wasn't until years later they were like, no. On Krypton, they're all like us.
Yeah.
It's when you bring one of them here that they get these powers because of the yellow sun
and let's not forget
Earth's gravity and blah blah blah.
The Kents, the original name of the Kents was Eben and Sarah.
Yes.
Eben. Yes. Okay. But yeah, that's again the nerd trivia stuff.
You ever think like if it wasn't like a thing where his powers emerged even partially like at puberty, if like in Superman the movie where like he's picking up cars when he's a toddler.
Yes.
Like, how did they survive?
I know,
right?
When
you think about like every bad day you ever had with a toddler. Then you give them the ability to destroy your house.
Well, the thing what they did is they kept him in a cement bunker with a chunk of kryptonite. Yeah. And he was the weakest little baby you've ever seen.
Well, that was like one of the only cool little things from 4, that scene in Superman 4 we're talking about.
Yeah, with the crib.
At the farm where you see the crib that he had destroyed or damaged as a kid.
You want to watch like scenes that would have like a young Clark Kent with like holding like some celery with someone who's never seen it before, and then like when he goes to like hunk somebody, you're just like and see if they jump. Because
how did he learn control? I always think of that. I was watching Superman and Lois because I slept on that show, so I'm now in season 2, and I'm enjoying it. But I just sit there, and it does bring home how domestic Superman. I just keep thinking like, he's patting people on the back at like football practice. And I'm like, it does just bring to mind. I'm like, how did he learn? Like, this is exactly how much pressure and air. And it's like, that will be okay and not destroy them, their spine.
Yeah.
I've been rewatching the 50s TV show recently. And
season 1 is great, by the way. It's really gritty.
I was going to say, I'm a much bigger fan as a kid. Oh God. Or these early episodes are in black and white. Oh, is it a color one? Good, it's a color one. And now I'm the opposite. I'm like, the black and white ones, some of the stories are good. Yeah. The whole way through, like the cast is charming as hell. Like it's worth watching. Just watching everyone be charming and wonderful. But like do
you have a preferred Lois?
It flipped. I met Noelle Neal at a convention once.
Oh,
and she was
shit.
Lovely. She was delightful, and so like that's always gonna.
And Phyllis Coates was a real bit. No.
It's always gonna color my thoughts on it because I've met the one actress.
I liked them
when I was a kid, I liked Noelle Neal so much better And now as I get older, it's like I kind of like Phyllis Coates. Although
well, Neil is the cute one. Phyllis Coates is like an actual reporter.
From episode to episode, like they will occasionally nail Lois where like she is a tough, looking out for herself career woman and a good reporter and has a rivalry with Clark, and but she's still nice and likable, and they just nail it. And there's other episodes where you're like, oh my god, she's a horrible person. Like,
why aren't you a real man, Clark? A real man like that wrestler.
Oh God.
Another thing I was going to say about your art and your career is, and it's again another question. Have you ever sought out like getting like one of those locked in contracts with one of the big two, or do you prefer being freelance and bouncing around?
There have been times that I would very, very much loved to have had one of those contracts, and they honestly have never wanted me enough to offer me that sort of thing. One of the reasons I moved more into working in animation a few years ago was I was not being kept busy by either DC or Marvel, and the further you go down the pecking order of comics publishers, the lower the page rates get, and and not only were they not keeping me busy, but because by and large they were only putting me on these animation tie-in books, those are not the books that sell well enough to generate significant royalty.
And they tend to last only as long as the cartoon did.
Yeah, so by and large I was getting my page rate, and then that was the last income that was ever going to produce for me. And then I would be doing a great job, but the book would just come to an end. And they were never like, well, you did such a great job on that for us, Chris. What are we going to work on together next? They were just like, thanks, okay, bye. And I, would feel like I was back on the street knocking on the door trying to get work again. And after the career I'd had, like I thought, like I feel like I do solid work. All the writers are really happy that I've talked to with how I interpreted their stories.
Well, it's their loss, Chris. They should have locked you down.
Well, I'm not done yet. We'll see what happens going forward.
No, not at all.
I know a thread that got away from us though. You asked about my doing either cartoon stuff or likenesses, and we talked about the likeness part. So I had been trying to get work at either DC or Marvel for the longest time. I grew up, to the extent I was more of a DC kid than a Marvel kid was only because as a kid, Batman was my absolute favorite superhero. And so I tended to get more DC comics because I would get anything that was, this was back before like there was a local comic shop to go to every Wednesday. This was more.
Did you have a local
grocery store with mom?
Yes.
And buy, as often as not, your selection were those awful 3-pack bags.
Yeah. Where one would be good.
To, like, see what the middle comic is without opening it.
I'll tell you right now, it was a Gold Key comic. I'll tell you right now, it was
very often
Richie Rich.
It was Whitman or Gold Key.
But
Korak, son of Stone. Oh shit.
But to this day, like if I had to pick a dream job, like it would be hard to do better than a Batman Brave and the Bold revival, just because like every month Batman and somebody else would eventually get to draw everybody.
It took me till I was old. Well, I had the benefit of having an older brother who got me into comics, and as he grew up, his preference went to Marvel. This is in the 70s. So he's buying all the Marvel, and of course I'm absorbing it. But my preference was DC. And he would read my DC stuff. So basically, I got the best of both worlds. I am reading Brave and the Bold, and I'm reading DC Comics Presents, where Superman would team up with someone every month.
Absolutely.
And he's the guy bringing in like Power Man and Iron Fist and stuff like that. And I'm like, this is awesome. Marvel team up and everything else. So that's the kind of stuff where it's like, I never felt the need to say I'm a DC guy or a Marvel guy, but I'm much more. I mean, Superman's my dude, and I lean DC. I see your Shakespeare bust behind you, and I can only imagine when you slide down the pole that you probably end up. I'm not sure. Do you end up in the Robin suit or the Batman suit? Isn't that awesome? Oh, I'm jealous. You got some cool props, my friend.
Oh, thank you. But so I've been trying to get work at either DC or Marvel, and I hadn't been having any luck. And this was back, when people were trying to start out doing comics today. I'm like, I tell them, like, do your own comics, put it out online.
It worked well for me.
Well, I was starting out back in the day when it was literally about doing sample pages, photocopying them, and sending them via U.S. mail to publishers.
Do you remember the Marvel tryout book?
Oh yeah, had a copy of that.
Me too.
But so I'd been sending samples. I'd not been having any luck. I would get, nice letters from editors, but never any offers of work. And then I saw an ad in a magazine that they were looking for freelance storyboard artists at Warner Brothers Animation. This was in the era of Batman the Animated Series, and I think they were doing Superman by that point. And I did some samples, tried to emulate that style.
The Bruce Timm style.
Didn't get anything out of that. But the next time I was sending a wave of comic samples out, I included those just as a here's more stuff you haven't seen from me. And you mentioned Young Heroes in Love. That packet got seen by the editor of that book that they needed a fill in on that title, and that book was being drawn in a somewhat cartoony style. And I think because of that, they probably had a smaller pool of artists that they knew of that could do that kind of art.
Ty Templeton, Mike Parobeck.
Yeah, this was definitely the age of Mike Parobeck. I don't even know I'm not sure if I had even heard of Ty at that point. I love
he was mainly
stuff,
indie
but
dude.
I didn't hear of him until later.
But clean line cartoony style. There weren't many people doing it.
No, and so that got me that, and then a lot of all my early work at DC before the Batman strikes was all for the same editor that got me in the door there. And again, it was like a 5-page or 10-page in those anthology titles they were doing, or a fill-in on Young Heroes in Love. Well, that lasted, and then they started using me on the animated Justice League book by the time that came out. But they didn't have a set creative team on that. They had like a pool of writers and a pool of artists, and they would just sort of like,
it was essentially kind of an anthology because there wasn't really continuity, right? It was just like the show. You'd get a story. Here's another story. Nothing really led to each other.
And then weirdly, so that then led to the story I told before about how I got the Batman Strikes gig of tracking down the editor. And the strange thing on that was it was originally a set creative team of me and a writer. And then after a couple dozen issues, that writer left. I'm not sure what the story was there, if they just moved on to other pastures. But then on the writer end of things, they went to the same kind of thing where they had a pool of about 4 writers that would just take stories in turn. But I got grandfathered in somehow as still being the regular artist. So, it was just me working with this rotating group of writers. The one downside to that was there wasn't any kind of narrative through line. I mean, not that you really expect a title like that to be anything other than standalone stories, but like I remember there was a run of about 8 issues where I think Poison Ivy showed up 3 times.
Wow.
I was like, just everyone happened to do a Poison Ivy story, and they're like, we got all these Poison Ivy stories.
The editor should be like, let's break it up, guys. Break it up.
Yeah, but I think they probably got to the point where they had a whole bunch of scripts and inventory that before it occurred to them was like, oh man, we haven't like seen the Riddler in 2 years, but we've got all
Does
these
anyone
Poison
remember
Ivy
that
stories.
guy? Oh
But
man, I tell you though, it is something you should be extremely proud of the body of work, because looking through your gallery is insane.
Oh, thank you.
And I will say, we're still a fledgling podcast, and we're happy to have anyone on, but I will say we will never have another person on our podcast who got to draw the team up of Batman and Cal Ripken. So if nothing else,
well, it's an exclusive club. There aren't that many of us.
No, I loved those one shots. I mean, I'm not a sports guy, but I remember all through 70s, 80s, 90s, there'd be a celebrity, sometimes a celebrity actor, but more often a sports star, and people like showing up in comics. I was always like going, why the hell is Superman hanging out with Shaquille O'Neal?
Here's a bit of trivia for you. That Batman Cal Ripken thing.
Yeah,
that was obviously a deal that the marketing department made to do a cross promotion thing with, was it Big League Chew? I think was
probably
the company that Cal Ripken had a deal with. So they made a deal that it was going to be an insert in DC Comics. I looked at it as like the 8-page version of the old Hostess fruit pie ads.
I was about to bring that up.
and it was Batman meeting Cal Ripken, and the whole thing is an ad for Big League Chew, and it was
so crazy.
It was I drew it because they were specifically, for whatever reason, using the Batman incarnation of the character that, which to me seems like a weird choice, but like, okay, whatever. I was getting paid to draw comics. I wasn't complaining. But on the Batman Strikes, I would say all but 2 or 3 issues that I drew were inked by a wonderful inker named Terry Bailey. There were a couple times that they had a fill-in inker come in and ink them. That Cal Ripken, I think it was 8 pages if memory serves. Might have been 6, but a little short thing. That is the first I inked myself for DC Comics. That's the only time I inked Batman for them myself.
Cool.
Nice. Do you like inking your own stuff, or is it a pain?
I do like inking it to have the control over the more control over the finished product. Especially since the collaboration with Terry was great because he was a good fit for the material. And because we got to work together for an extended period of time, we kind of got to know each other's
that's cool
art really well. More often than not, the experience with inkers was I would turn the pencils and not even know who the inker was going to be. Yeah. And then they would put an inker on it that was used to the more kind of Image era feathered line style, which is not
as if they were getting paid by the line.
and so like these perfectly talented inkers, and I would look at the results and kind of be like, it's not really what I had in mind, but okay,
it's out of your hands.
I miss it. Is interesting. The collaboration is interesting to see what different people bring out of your stuff. I mean, what are the more bizarre pairings with an inker I ever had? Like, never would have seen it coming. Never could have imagined how much I would like the results.
What was it?
The last Young Heroes in Love story I did. They were in the middle of doing all those 1 million issues.
Oh,
remember, like all the whole DC 1 million thing.
Mm-hmm.
So they're doing an extra issue of all these titles, which meant the regular artist for the Young Heroes in Love book was busy drawing that, and then they decided, the Young Heroes in Love, which had all kind of been on a bubble for sales for its whole history, they were not only they knew it was going to be ending, but they decided like, no, we're going to end it as of this issue. They made a deal to like add an extra 6 pages to the issue to help tie up some of the plot lines.
Oh,
Since
that's
it was
nice.
like ending, but it meant, you know, that issue just got bigger. It was already behind because of the 1 million issue. So I came in to draw that. And because the regular inker on the book was also doing an extra issue, they brought in a fill-in inker to do my pages on the last issue. And they got Sal Buscema.
Oh my God. You're kidding.
And he completely overwhelmed my pencils with his style, and it looked fantastic.
I do have to ask the question.
It was all of my choices for composition and visual storytelling.
Yeah.
But rather than what I would get so often from Acres, which is like it just because I would do like really tight pencils.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of that cross hatching there, so the inkers would get it and kind of not know what to do with it, and they would just sort of like just trace it in ink basically and just not bring a lot to the table. Sal Buscema went in and was like, I'm gonna Sal Buscema the hell out of this, and it looked great. So it's issue number 17 of Young Heroes in Love.
17.
I don't remember if the credits specify which pages are by the regular artist, the regular pencil inker team, and which are my and Sal Buscema's pages. But I don't think you'll have a hard time telling the difference. They're just stylistically really different.
At what point in the process did you find out that Sal had done that? Was it after he'd done it or before he started?
I don't remember when I heard he was doing it. They sent me, I think they sent me photocopies of the pages before the comic came out.
So it wasn't like when you saw the finished issue.
No, like, no. It wasn't that late in the game, but like, yeah, that was like, wow.
I'm looking at it right now because I have
the
my
internet's
ways.
A wonderful thing, isn't it?
It sure is. And I will say, yes, you can tell.
So I mean that's the kind of thing I miss. Is like there are inkers. It would be fun to collaborate with them just to see what different things they would bring out of the artwork. But it's funny. When I got the Young Justice job, I had wanted to move into inking my own stuff, but when I came on it, the book was running a little behind schedule wise, and so I volunteered. I said, "Tell you what, to help get the book back on schedule, why don't you get an inker for me, and I will just pencil until we're caught up. And then I would like to ink my own stuff if I can." And they were okay with that, and it took a few more issues to get them to okay me taking over the inks than I expected, but I finally got to. And not only did I ink all the rest of my work on that book, but every comic I had ever done since, they've never even asked me if I wanted an inker.
That's awesome.
Like literally, once I started inking my own stuff, I have never been inked by anybody else since.
Was the concern? I mean, obviously, your inking would have been great, but was the concern deadlines? Like, can he pencil in ink and get it in on time?
Yeah, if you're inking your own stuff, just consider whatever amount of time it takes to draw it in pencil.
Yeah.
And then you have to go back and do an inking pass, as opposed to the next script is ready. I can just go ahead and start drawing the next issue. So yeah, it was just it was for time. It was for time.
Chris, this is for one thing. It's awesome to have had you here. I'm sorry if I was jibber jabbering a lot. It's very exciting for me to talk to a pro, simply because for a lot of my writing, I've bumped up against this stuff. And it's fascinating to talk to the people who do it for a living. And I'm always like the guy on the outside going like, oh, I could pitch a thing. But at the same time, it's the process. I know why once I had finished my thing, I was like, yeah, I could not do this professionally. The idea of the workload, the having to be flexible enough to be able to draw everything and anything and not literally just give up because you're bored or exhausted or all that, man, it's a real tough gig. you've done it for decades.
Oh, well, thank you. That one of my favorite things about the challenge of drawing comics is if I were sitting around every day and just saying, what do I feel like drawing today?
Yeah.
There are things I would never have come up with to challenge myself.
Yes.
That have come out of problems I had to solve because it was in the script and I had to figure out how to draw it. Whether that's how to communicate something with body language, whether it's how to simplify some complicated thing down into a line drawing.
Yeah.
One of my happiest oh duh moments ever was this most recent run of Young Justice comics, Young Justice Targets. There were multiple scenes where somebody opened a boom tube. And if you look at the TV show, they do this kind of CG animation effect for the boom tube.
Yeah.
It's not defined lines, it's glowing and moving. And I'm like, and I had this moment because, I always would look at the show, like, how do I translate that into comics? And I had this moment where I was like, oh boy, how do I make that work out of the comics page? And I'm like, oh God, just go back to basics. Kirby dots. And I just did a good old fashioned Kirby dot boom tube and look great. Work fine.
I love how basic Kirby drew it. Kirby just drew a literal tube with even rings on the inside of it, and but energy blasting off of it. But still, it's they're just like, hey, how you doing? I just got here from Apocalypse. Hey,
Kirby is the single best example in comics I know of an artist that his work was greater than the sum of its parts. His anatomy doesn't make sense.
No.
His perspective isn't great.
No.
There are so many things that
a lot of his faces are quite ugly.
Technically, it's a fault in the art. But somehow
you put it all together and it's the best comic art you've ever seen.
And and when it's really good, it's amazing. Kirby had better days than others, but it was really good
and better inkers than others.
And if
some got it, some didn't.
You just get all those parts and you get all the flaws that just doesn't. There's so few guys.
I think the best guy who ever copied Steve Rude, probably one of the best guys who ever. I was
going to say, Nelly can he effectively channel Kirby with the whole coalescence of what made Kirby work.
Yeah.
The mini series he did that was the Superman Hulk crossover.
Oh my God.
The fact
he's
that he
doing Fleischer, Schuster,
Superman on the same page as a Kirby Hulk, and it works.
Yeah. Chad, that huge omnibus I showed you, the one that's all the DC Marvel crossovers, that has that one shot, which I've read before, but it has that one shot, Steve Rude. They allowed him, it's you're going to do Superman and Hulk. He's like, great, but I want to do it in a non-time period. I don't want to be it's not today. So I want Superman to look like he did in the old Fleischer cartoons and a little bit of the Schuster face. And he draws Hulk like Kirby did. Yeah. And somehow it all works. And is it the 60s it's happening in? Is it happening today? People have cell phones.
Clark Kent shows up in a 40s suit. He's got the fedora.
It all works because Steve Rude's an amazing artist. Highly recommended. Yeah, you got to read that. Chris, this has been a lot of fun. I think we should probably wrap. I'm excited for Thursday. I also want to say, on behalf of myself, Chad, you could go ahead and tell him he sucks because Chad's the hard one. He comes at you. I should warn you.
Good cut back.
Go ahead.
But I want to say thank you so much. Will you come back sometime? Can we talk to you about all kinds of other stuff?
I was gonna say, if there's anything that we've discussed that you realize later, we could have done a deeper dive on
it's gonna happen.
Or you even just want to once we get this trailer, once we get some more content to respond to, I would be delighted to come back because
I'm gonna need a couple of days after Thursday just to recover. I'm already predicting.
The life of a comic book artist is a solitary one. One of the reasons why we love going to conventions is
why haven't you done a podcast yourself, sir?
Time and I'm not just recording them, but I would have to develop the skill set to record and edit and all of that, and I'm busy doing my drawing.
I'm completely lucky that Chad is brilliant. He does all the editing. I just show up and talk. Chad's the guy who runs this thing.
if somebody, if I had a friend that was putting together a podcast and they were like, oh, you want to like, do this with me? I'm like, if you take care of everything, I'll show up and talk. But like, that's all I got time for. And that's never happened. So,
consider yourself a permanent guest because you're great.
I will definitely do this again.
Anytime you guys want to talk some more, hit me up. And this is a lot of fun. It's great just getting to talk comics and movies and all that stuff. And
we're living in a golden age. Woo!
We are. It's the second golden age.
I have one flash question I want to ask you guys before we started off talking about the Superman crest. What is your prediction? Just really quickly, what is your prediction for James Gunn's Superman? Is the S, which we've seen, obviously it's more like the Kingdom Come S than the classic S we were talking about. Do you think that this S is, in James Gunn's continuity, the House of L symbol?
Ooh.
Or is it something that he came up with himself?
My mom made it for me.
I don't know what else it would be other than the House of L crest, because if it was meant to be an S for Superman, it would look more like an S.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
That's my thinking. That's my thinking as well.
And so if it's not that, I don't know what it would be other than a House of L crest.
I certainly didn't mind. Man of Steel, I have so many problems with, but as we said, there are things we like in it. The whole thing of him lifting, I think it was probably Birthright. I think it was Mark Waid who came up with the thing of where he goes, this means hope. In our language, this means hope. I didn't mind that. I was like, that's good. I don't know if James Gunn will use that or if it's just the crest of the House of L.
I don't hate that idea. I don't know how hard you have to lean into it. I mean, like, there's things that like they're not new. I mean, like I don't ever need any more Christ imagery in my Superman movies either.
Yeah,
that goes back to Donner, and arguably a lot of it's inherent in the character. Although given the character was created by a couple of
Jewish kids,
it's like, well, it might be more Moses than Christ.
Yeah, it's Moses. The basket down the river. Yeah,
exactly. So I mean, it's not like the religious imagery isn't inherently there, but like, I don't need more poses and
Well, I gotta say, not only does the image look great, of course the sound was great, but just the tagline of "Look Up."
Yeah.
I'm like, okay,
so that's perfect.
All right. That's right in the vein.
I'm hoping the movie is going to be as good as we're all wanting it to be.
I know.
It feels like
it
could be hitting this zeitgeist thing of the right movie at the right moment.
We're going to need something uplifting next
aspirational.
Year. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And that's, I mean, I grew up, this might be a good note to end on. I grew up with Batman being my favorite superhero, but as I've gotten older, I still love superheroes. I still love working on superhero material, but I find myself more and more wanting to work on stuff that has themes that resonate with me and that mean something to me.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do better than Superman.
Yeah.
For a character that says, the power fantasy of Superman isn't about, wouldn't it be cool if I could fly and bend steel bars? The power fantasy of Superman is, wouldn't it be great if someone had all that power and just used it to help people?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And
Amen, brother.
That's a story I could get behind helping tell.
Oh, yeah. You're right. Yeah. Perfect ending note. And on that note, give us money. Wait, no, terrible. No, awful way to end it.
So, Chris, what's your preferred social thingy for me to link?
When I remember to update it, my website is ChristopherJonesArt.com, which has links to my social media. I need to update that because I have been on Twitter for years, but I've just migrated over to Blue Sky.
Blue Sky.
Sky.
Christopher Jones 1 at Blue Sky. Christopher Jones Comic Art on Facebook. Those are the two big ones. I'm on Instagram as well. Go to my website, you'll find all the links.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I unfortunately, with the way social media is, I have not been able to have a consistent handle across platforms, so it always gets confusing. Well, it's this on here and it's this on here.
You could do a link tree. I understand the kids love a link tree.
Yeah, I need to build a link tree.
Well, look him up, and again, thanks for being with us. And Chad, shut up, man. You've just been babbling.
I know. I'm
whole
just
time.
yeah.
Can we, if we do another one of these, can we leave him out so I can get a word in edgewise, please?
Yeah,
it's only fair. But anyway, again, thank you so much, man. This has been so much fun.
Yeah,
it has.
And we've got to do it again.
Should I do one of these?
Yeah.
Do a turnaround, and we'll actually superimpose. Yeah, we'll get your.
I didn't see you there.
Or.